would have seen the thousands of people at our Tampa Airport, International Airport, waiting and cheering to greet the Springboks as they finally returned home this morning after winning the Rugby World Cup again on Saturday. Well, many different views about this and how our politicians are reacting to it. Lorenzo is the CEO of the Development Impact Fund. Lorenzo, good afternoon to you. You actually have said that as the game started on Saturday night, you almost thought it would be better if we lost, that somehow that would be more fitting. Why did you feel like that?
Yes, Stephen, thank you, and good afternoon to you and the viewers. You know, it's a reaction to what we face every day. I think the Boks is an outstanding outfit. I was listening to your previous clip now, and it nearly brought me to tears. I mean, we have a phenomenal team, but we are living from high to high to high like it's a drug in our system, and it robs us from the honest conversations we should be having with each other in this country. And perhaps I was feeling at that moment where the failure would not serve us better than winning would, because it would give us a moment to reflect and ask ourselves very deep questions.
I mean, this has happened in other countries. I mean, Argentina's been through all sorts of turmoil over the last 50 years, and football is huge there. When they won World Cups, I think in the 1990s, when they did well in the 1980s, I mean, the same thing would happen, right? There are plenty of other countries, you know, societies, very damaged societies, where sport almost becomes a bit like that sort of drug.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when Sia said in the interview that you just listened to and played for us, that the coaches knew how to use the diversity of the team to build a winning team, that for me was almost prophetic. It's fundamental. And that's what our politicians don't understand. They don't know how to use the diverse strengths of a country that they are leading to build a successful nation. This is not just about winning, winning, winning. This is about building strength that is internal to our democracy. And that's what I find missing in the debate. I mean, the president congratulates the team, the country is elated. We are all excited about Sia and what that team, Rassie and Jacques did with that team. It's phenomenal. But it's using the strength, it's using the diverse strengths that the team members bring. And South Africa has failed dismally at using that particular skill to build a successful nation. And so we sit with greater diversity and an amazing diversity, but more divided, not using the strengths of that diversity to build a great country.
Is there a way in which maybe the Springboks sort of lie about what we are? If we're a broken society, we should sort of be honest about that.
Yeah, and I wish that narrative would be part of what Sia tells us, because he's a phenomenal leader. I think he has the respect of every single South African and people all across the world. But there must be a way that we say we are failing as a nation. You know, when the president said last night that the South Africans must show patriotism, he was glad with the patriotism we showed on Box Friday and in the stadiums, and he hopes that patriotism translates to, you know, everyday stuff we do in the country. Patriotism, Stephen, is a reaction. Patriotism is a reaction to winning. Patriotism is a reaction to good stuff. Patriotism is a reaction to the right stuff. Patriotism is not an automatic switch on and switch off. And so when the president calls for patriotism, he must understand that patriotism goes to the Boks because of who they are, what they do, and how they do it. When we are not patriotic, as visible as the president wants us to be to what the state does, then the president must ask himself deep questions. And the government must ask themselves deep questions. Why South Africans are elated about the Boks, but not elated about the government. He can't buy the patriotism that we show the Boks for his government as well. And that's the big difference. Patriotism is a response to good governance, to goodness, to strategic developments, to growing the prosperity of a country. It is not just an automatic switch off and come please display your patriotism to me as well. That's the difference.
There's been so much commentary and, you know, the sort of stronger together line, which is a really effective, I mean, I don't know which advertising person sort of, you know, drew it up, but I do think they deserve a jolly good handshake and perhaps something stronger. But, you know, the power of it, of the Springboks, may not be that they bring us together. I mean, they do, but that, I wonder, may only be a part of it. What actually may be the power is that there could be a sign that even in a broken society, if you are able to do certain things, you too can succeed. Let me give you an example. The idea is that it says that even if you grow up in a township, you may be able to go to a suburban school, and you may then be able to go to university, and you may then be able to drag yourself climbing against everything that's against you into the middle class, and then bring your family with you. And that's a very powerful message in a society as broken as and as divided between sort of township and suburbia as ours.
Yeah, and Stephen, all those stories are good. Sia's story itself is phenomenal. Mani's story, you know, Ergis Neyman's story. There are so many people who have amazing, the stories that we live with through the Springbok message is phenomenal. I mean, those are the stories that inspire us. And when we listen to it, then there's hope. There's a sense of we believe again. We rise again. But listen, Stephen, in theatre and in sport, hope may spring eternal. In politics, hope is not. Hope is temporary. Hope we renew every 5 years. It's not eternal. And that's the difference. We have to ensure that our politicians understand that they can't call us to hope for the next 6 bouts of 5 years, because that's not hope. That is abuse. And what the Springboks do is that every 4 years they renew our hope in them. The government does not. That's the difference. When you ask us to hope and believe, then yes, then renew that hope every 4 years. And the Boks do that. They get to the finals, they win a competition, or they come second, whatever that number is, but they are up there. When we have failing statistics from the state, when we have failing statistics from the government, then hope cannot be renewed at the ballot box every time. Then there's disappointment, and we vote in disappointment. That's the difference. And so there are so many good stories with the Boks, but it's because they inspire, they show us the real world through the lives they live and through the course that they're on by winning competitions. The government does not. The government does not, Stephen.
Isn't the difference that politicians, to win elections here and in many other countries, find it easier to do that by dividing people than uniting people? And we can think of various examples in South Africa. I can think of Donald Trump in other places, Boris Johnson too. There are many. And isn't that the difference? That politics involves making very calculated trade-offs, choosing issues, using them as wedge issues, deliberately dividing people. And I hate to say it, but that is the route to success in politics at the moment in many democracies. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Politics is about the majority. And it's different to what Sia says, that he's playing for 62 million people. Politics is about whoever gets 10 million votes in this country would probably form a government. In Sia's case, they visibly, he said it again today, we play for the entire country. We pick ourselves up. What is there to play for? We're not playing for ourselves anymore. We've won this competition now 3 times. He's won it twice. He says we are playing for the country. And the politicians don't understand that message. They want 10 million votes or somewhere around that number to form a government once again. That's what this is about for them. So you're right. They're gonna crowd the theater with 10 million people and forget about the other 52 million people because they don't need their votes. And so they crowd that number into the room, play the game for those 10 million people, and as long as they get through that bout, they are happy. They are content. They will not do anything other than disturb. They don't wish to disturb that 10 million people. And we can't go on like that. I mean, the Boks have set a phenomenal example. Where's the politician that gets on the stage and says, I am here for 62 million people? I've not heard a politician tell me that. They say, oh, it brings us together. That's nonsense. It doesn't bring us together. It helps us see that it's possible to win, yes, if we all play this game, but not when it's only played for 10 million votes. It has to be played for 62 million votes.
You make the point, Lorenzo, that during the World Cup, everyone was cheering for the same team, and yet back home, we often still define ourselves by how we look or the language that we speak, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think maybe one of the reasons so many people were happy to wear the green and gold is that the way they looked almost disappeared for a moment, you know. But isn't that also true of many other countries? There are divisions in New Zealand society. We don't see them particularly often, but they just had an election where the left was literally turned out by the right. In Australia, they just had a referendum, a very divisive referendum, in which voters decided, I'm still amazed at this result, but they decided not to properly recognize the voice of the country's original people, the Aboriginal people. Yeah. Don't all countries have their divisions? Don't many of them come together to fight on the sports field against another country? And doesn't everyone support them when that happens? And then they go back to normal.
Yeah, Look, there's no uniqueness in what we are going through. And you're right, Australia, New Zealand, Poland, the same kind of stuff are emerging. Left-wing governments being replaced by right-wing governments. So we live with this reality. We should again not seek South African exceptionalism or South African uniqueness within our narrative. But what is true about us is that our particular brand of politics in this country has not managed to lift us significantly out of poverty, as we said at the start of this interview, into a significant band of middle-class people. And that's the big question mark we have to draw over why we are where we are. It's that people have basically remained static in the economic bands, and in fact the middle class is getting smaller. We are not growing beyond those kind of triple bottom line poverty, food poverty line, and upper bound poverty line, and lower bound poverty lines. That's SA tell us. When people are not moving out of that, they're just swinging within the poverty bands, and it's while this government is there. And I have no political preference. What I want is a functioning government. I want a state that takes care of its people. When you see Sia run off the field when the final whistle blows, he looks around and he tries and finds Cheslin, and he runs to Cheslin. He's leaving the other 13 players on the field, and he goes and fetches the man on the sidelines and brings him on and says, "You deserve to be here." That's the kind of government I want. That's the kind of nuance that should be within the narrative in South Africa. And for too long a time, we've ignored the truth about who we are. That this divided, this fractured society needs a Sia, a character that runs to the sidelines and says to everybody, "You deserve to be on this field." And we can go on with these analogies, forever. But the truth is that when we call our win phenomenal, yes, it is. But it's a drug, Stephen. We have to talk about that reality, not replace our reality with the win. And if the conversation now dies because we've won, then that will be the saddest outcome to another Springbok win for me.
Lorenzo, I'm reminded of the biblical story of the shepherd that leaves the flock to go and find the lost sheep. Thank you very much indeed, Lorenzo.
Yeah.